Hi, I'm Jay Grogi, founder of The Balanced Runner, and I have video footage here for you of the top American men in the Chicago Marathon in 2023. I was at mile 25 and filmed at 240 frames per second. So we can get a good look at what they're doing, unfortunately, just from the side, but it still gives us a lot to work with. And there are some really interesting similarities among them as well as, of course, differences. So let's take a look. Here's Connor Mance, who was the first American man, and you'll see him bouncing a bit more. He's a springy, upright runner. His left hand comes close to his chest and he arches when he takes off the front of his left foot. His right hand swings farther out in front and he doesn't seem to arch. We would have more information about that symmetry if we had a front or back view, but we don't. You can see he doesn't use a whole lot of hip extension, and so let's take a closer look at what that means about his pelvis movement then as well. You'll see that he lands on his left foot and the pelvis loads on the left side and then immediately tips forward into toe off. So again, you watch this, the next stride moves up in loading and then immediately forward in toe off. And then looking more at the hip extension and the role this plays. Again, because he's more upright, he's got probably a quicker cadence. His back knee is bent, whereas Kiptum's was straight. Kiptum probably has a bit longer of a stride length, but we can't really measure that this way. And so here you see the high cycling quick leg action. So here we have Clayton Young, and you can see right off the bat that he uses more hip extension than Connor Mance does, and that he is really upright without appearing to arch, at least when you see him from the front, and that his lower legs are going way out in front of him for foot strike. As he comes into view more directly from the side, you'll see that actually he does arch more in the lower back so that it's his abdomen really that gets pushed forward with each stride, and he doesn't bounce very much at all. So that when he speeds up, you can see that it's almost like he's really just using his back muscles to push himself forward when he runs. Here are Galen Rupp and Sam Chalanga. Rupp in front has a good forward lean, forward trunk inclination. He's the only one in this video who isn't arching at any point, but he does have an asymmetry going on that I think is actually causing a problem for him. So his left hand comes close to his chest, his right hand swings out, like we're seeing a lot. But what you can't see in the video, but I saw in person, is that when he was taking off his left leg, his upper body would tense and ratchet. And you can see here his left toe off is not very extended, and his right is much more so. Didn't quite nail the identical moment in his gait cycle. In full speed running, it is a little bit of a limp. So looking at the same clip again for Chalanga, you can see a very different coordination pattern. Chalanga is much more upright, and his hands are swinging from outside to inside. And that is a sign that a person is arched or tensed in the mid back rather than the lower back. And we will see that's the case as he comes more into a full side view. He is using more hip extension in the hip joints. So his legs extend farther behind him, even though he's more upright. So it's actually a lot more in the joint than Rupp is using. And so here, if we look when they come into sync, you can see the difference in trunk posture, how arched and thrown back in the head Chalanga is, and then how arched he is in order to take off from his foot. So the majority of these men were running upright, and that's nothing new for American men, but it does not help performance because it increases air resistance or drag. And so that's more work that has to be done. And it tends to make it harder to get good functional hip extension. It means that you're pushing some other part of your body forward with your toe off rather than your head. So you might be pushing predominantly your belly forward, like for instance, Young, or the middle of your chest, like Sam Chalanga. You might be actually having your head fall backwards. And the musculature on the front of your body has to work harder to hold you together if part of you is falling backwards while lower down parts of you are being pushed forward. So all of that is probably not a huge cost, but added up over a marathon, it makes a difference. And then the thing that I've really emphasized in this video that I just find so striking is it's actually two things. It's the arching, all of arching. That is much more than I'm used to seeing. And having now done a lot of assessments of people in and out of super shoes, I'm starting to find that this can really accompany running in super shoes, especially, I guess, more recent models. And especially for people who do not normally get their weight all the way to their toes before taking off from, because the shoe will rock you forward onto your toes. And at that moment that you're coming onto your toes, you're also coming into more hip extension, and your body is farther in front of your foot than it otherwise might be. That's great for performance. But if you didn't already know how to get there yourself without the shoes, then you will have a reaction. And the reaction usually it's this iliopsoas tightening up, hip flexor tightening up, and then an arching reflex. And so you end up, that last bit of the toes going down turns into an arching action instead of an action that pushes your shoulder forward and your body forward. And in this video, Galen Rupp is the only person who wasn't doing that. And he doesn't normally, he has no history of doing that either. Kipchoge is another person who doesn't do that. In my other video from the Chicago Marathon of Kelvin Kiptum, he is actually lifting his chest just a little bit, but it's pretty slight. Honestly, Rupp may be doing a little bit of that as well. So this dynamic appears. And even if you go all the way back to my 2019 video of Bridget Koskay setting world record in Chicago, the before after comparison of her before super shoes and after is dramatically different form and much more arched. But she had been too flexed before, so the result is not a huge arch, it's just a little more lifted and extended. So it depends on how you run out of the shoes, what happens to your form in them. But these very large arching movements probably don't feel that great. And they're not that great for your performance, even if you are performing better than with the shoes. So I just really want to highlight that because, again, it's so striking in these videos how many people are doing that. And then the final thing is the asymmetry that we're seeing. It's so funny. I think Chalanga is the only one who is not swinging his right arm farther forward than his left, or not noticeably in the video. And that maps onto a common asymmetry that runners have, being a little shorter on the whole right side, not the hip itself, but the whole right side is harder to lengthen. And I first wrote about that, Eliud Kipchoge, back in 2015, I think. And I see it all the time in practically every. So if you're in shoes that make you use more extension, but you have this asymmetry, particularly if it's strong, that is really going to show up somewhere in your form. And so I think the right arm coming forward is to help get the weight forward because the body is not able to go forward enough. And we can't really see the mechanics of that by looking from the side. We'd have to be looking from the front. And because of where I was standing for the race, we don't have that view. So I'm pick a different spot next year for the marathon. But I think that's what's going on with all of these runners. And those that I know their form from other races, that they're all asymmetrical that way. I think that's dynamic, but the cost is if this asymmetry is increased in the shoes, then so is risk for injury. And asymmetry overall does seem to be increased in these shoes in my experience in my practice. So those are the dynamics that I'm seeing across these runners. It was also great to see their excellent performance. So kudos to all of them. And I hope this information helps them and helps you continue to improve and also to enjoy your running more. Thanks so much, and may all your running dreams come true.